Hi, this is Rachel Beachy recording my persuasive speech for the speech class. This is my speech on art therapy. Again, sorry everything is super late. I have a very hectic life. So, to begin, the topic at hand is art therapy and why I think it should be more effectively, properly, and regularly utilized in various institutions. To begin with, art therapy, because many people don't necessarily understand what art therapy is. A lot of people believe it's just looking at drawings and paintings that people create and sort of breaking them down, examining them, and determining what different issues they might have or disorders. And while that's a small piece of it, it's not the whole picture. The big thing about art therapy is all about process and actually taking the time to create a piece. It involves a lot of self-exploration, meditation, and a lot of soul searching, and just like sort of really hard to explain without actually taking the time to work through it. So, one of the examples that a lot of people use, and I think is a fine example, is using the work of Vincent van Gogh. Everyone has seen Starry Night or Crows Over a Wheat Field, as referenced in my PowerPoint, is Crows Over a Wheat Field. The last painting he ever created before he died. When we look back at the painting now, knowing what we know about psychology, art, and style and texture, we know that at the time while painting this, he was very distraught. And what we know about him from his therapist at the time, he was seeing a therapist, but he wouldn't have been called a therapist. He was just a doctor. He did have a lot of emotional disturbances. He was very depressed, bipolar, and theoretically may or may not have been schizophrenic. Can't really confirm it without speaking to him ourselves. But upon further examination now, we can see in his brushstrokes and the power and the fluidity and just the energy what he had been going through while he did this. And a lot of times now when we look at the art people create in art therapy, we can see like apprehension, we can see tension, we can see comfort, we can see discomfort, we can see pain, we can see boredom, all with brushstrokes, how they draw, and then basic development. Because obviously there's development as people learn to draw over time. Children start with sort of nonsensical scribbling and evolve into different stages. And there's a stage we reach that most people sort of plateau here during the adolescent stage. Very basic stick figure drawings, maybe a little bit more meat on them. But the only people that tend to develop more past that are people who are very interested in art and want to take the time to work on it. But even in little kids' art, we can see different symbols and see a process taking place, and that process in and of itself is therapeutic. When people engage in art therapy, even if it's not art therapy, it's just something as simple as creating art in any setting, it's been proven to alleviate stress. There's a very calming effect it has on some people, and the type of medium they use is very important here. Like a lot of people have a lot of apprehension and intimidation when it comes to the materials presented before them. Like I remember going in my very first sculpture class and being given this giant slab of clay, and my teacher was like, okay, make something. And I was like, what do you want me to make out of this? This giant slab of clay. It was so intimidating that I think I sat for the first half of class just staring at it, doing nothing. That's not something I would suggest doing in an art therapy session with somebody who isn't even trained in a lot of art techniques. And I had been trained. I'd been going years of art classes, and I was terrified of clay. So generally you want to start someone off with, things that are really accessible, things that people remember, like crayons and markers and pencils and pens, things that we might just do every day. And it seems silly, but it's very important, because if you're giving someone a material that startles them, all their work is going to be startling. It's going to look uncomfortable. It's going to be full of apprehension and withdrawal. You need to give them something they can work with so that they can really dig down into what's going on inside them and not focus so much on how to work with the material we give them. One thing that I've noticed is that there is a divide between people that use things like pens and markers and people that use things like paint, like finger painting versus say watercolors or acrylic. There is a divide. It happens a lot between men and women. It seems that more women prefer paint to men. That has been shown in a lot of different studies done. Don't really know what that means. It's just a really interesting fact that has emerged. But while people use the materials we give them, hopefully they're comfortable with, you give them guidance. You tell them how they're supposed to do this, even though there's no right way or wrong way. Sometimes you just sit down and tell them, okay, just what do you feel like drawing today? Maybe give them something simple like draw your favorite childhood pet and hope that they had one. If not, think of something else. Or draw a family portrait. Draw a moment that made you really happy, a moment that made you really scared. Just something very simple, but as they're taking the time to draw this out and develop a composition, they're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about all these different pieces that play into those moments or why these things are important to them. Art therapy is powerful. It can be very powerful, and utilized in the right settings can fix so many problems. They started using it in prisons at least 10 years ago for people who are on different offender statuses. And they saw over the course of 5 years, violence went down in those units. A lot of people upon release, especially if they were coming near parole, were more than likely to get parole than those who were not engaging in art therapy. Because it changed them. It gave them self-worth. It gave them healing. They were able to work through these different things through something as simple as drawing. And that's beautiful. And there's really something important in art that we need to remember. And it's sort of really hard to explain because I know what I feel when I sit down and work on a drawing, but I can't possibly explain that to someone if they haven't done that themselves. And I think everyone should take the time to engage in art therapy just a couple times a week. And it doesn't even have to be art therapy. You can just sit down and just draw. Draw anything. You don't have to worry about it being good. It's for you. It's for you. And in the end, you're going to come out feeling good, and you're not going to know why. You're just going to be like, I sat down and completed this drawing, and maybe you hate the drawing, but there's something about having worked through this that makes you feel good. Art therapy is really important, and I think it's something that we should study more and use more because it does wonderful things. Thank you.